The first time I saw her, I was wrestling with the ancient lawnmower, its sputtering engine an echo of my own uncertain life. She stood on the edge of her back porch, arms crossed, eyes scanning the yard with a clinical precision that I would later learn was her signature. "You know," she called out, her voice cutting through the summer air, "everyone seems to think they can tell what someone like me wants." I paused, wiping sweat from my brow with a dirt-streaked forearm. Her words hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in mystery. I told her I wasn't the kind of guy she thought. With a half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, she replied, "You have no idea what kind I want." Her name was Dr. Evelyn Mercer, a 45-year-old widowed surgeon, and I was just the guy who mowed her lawn. My name is Jack Thompson, 32, caretaker by necessity more than choice, and caught in the emotional limbo of a life that had stalled. I had taken this job to escape the monotony of my own existence, a temporary gig that paid in cash and asked few questions. Evelyn was a neighbor who lived 2 houses down from the small, nondescript rental I called home. Her demeanor was as sharp as the scalpel she wielded in the operating room, yet there was an atmosphere around her, a kind of muted melancholy that whispered of stories untold. Her house, a sprawling colonial with ivy clinging to its brick facade, stood as a testament to a life of order and accomplishment. Yet there was an emptiness to it, a sense of something missing, much like the half-finished bottle of wine that seemed to perpetually sit on her kitchen counter. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself spending more time in her backyard, ostensibly to tend to the garden that seemed perpetually on the brink of chaos. Evelyn would appear every now and then, sometimes with a glass of iced tea, other times just to lean against the doorway, watching me with those inscrutable eyes. Our conversations were sparse at first, punctuated by the rhythmic hum of the mower or the gentle chirping of crickets as dusk settled in. But there was a tension between us, an unspoken understanding that something lay beneath the surface waiting to be unearthed. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Evelyn wandered out to where I was trimming the hedges. She stood there for a moment, silent, before asking, "Do you ever feel like people see only what they want to see?" I stopped, the shears hanging loosely in my hands. "I suppose everyone does, to some extent, but I try to see what's actually there, not just the surface." She nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Good, because surfaces lie, Jack." Our eyes locked, and for a moment it felt as though the world had narrowed to just the two of us, standing amidst the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant sound of children playing. It was a strange, almost forbidden closeness, and I wondered if she felt it too. The tension between us seemed to grow with each passing encounter, a delicate dance of words and glances, of silence and subtext. One evening, as I was packing up my tools, Evelyn appeared in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the warm glow from inside the house. "Would you like to come in for a drink?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of an invitation that felt both innocent and perilous. I hesitated, aware of the line we were towing, but curiosity got the better of me. "Sure," I replied, following her into the cool interior of the house. The kitchen was immaculate, a stark contrast to the chaotic garden outside. She poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to me before leaning against the counter. "You know, everyone thinks they know what women like me want," she said, echoing her earlier words, "but they're all wrong." "What do you want, Evelyn?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop myself. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine as if weighing the truth of what she was about to say. "I want authenticity. Someone who sees me, not just the surgeon or the widow." Her words struck a chord within me, resonating with my own desire to be seen for who I truly was, beyond the facade of the caretaker. The moment hung between us, heavy with the potential for something more. As I left that night, the air buzzing with an energy I couldn't quite define, I realized that this was a turning point. The delicate balance between us had shifted, opening up possibilities I'd never dared to consider. But with those possibilities came the fear of what we might lose. Over the next few weeks, our interactions grew more frequent, the line between professional and personal blurring with each shared glance and conversation. There were moments when I caught myself lingering too long, my eyes tracing the curve of her smile or the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. Each time I reminded myself the fragile nature of what we were building, and the risk of it all coming crashing down. One evening as I was leaving, Evelyn caught my arm. Her touch was light, yet it sent a jolt through me. "You know, Jack," she said softly, "sometimes the hardest part is letting yourself want something you're not supposed to." Her words lingered with me long after I had walked away, echoing in the quiet of my own empty house. The fear of crossing that line was ever present, yet so was the pull towards something deeper, something real. It was clear that we were dancing around the edges of something forbidden, both of us aware of the risks yet drawn inexorably to the possibility of what might be. In that delicate balance we found a new understanding, a connection that defied the easy labels and expectations of the world around us. Our story was far from over, and though the path ahead was uncertain, there was a quiet hope in the knowledge that we were not alone in navigating the complexities of desire and understanding. In the silence and the spaces between words, we discovered a shared truth, and in that truth, a burgeoning sense of possibility. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a trail of purples, pinks, and oranges that danced across the sky like the final strokes of a painter's brush. It was as if the day itself was reluctant to leave, whispering its farewell in hues so gentle and yet so profound. Evelyn and I were comfortably settled on her back porch, surrounded by a world that had grown still in the wake of twilight. The wooden boards beneath us creaked with a familiar, reassuring sound, as if acknowledging our presence and offering us a seat in this serene moment. Evelyn, with her graceful movements, poured us each a glass of wine. The wine was a deep, rich red, capturing the fading light and shimmering in a way that reminded me of secrets shared between close friends. It was the kind of moment where words felt unnecessary, where silence was not an absence, but a presence in itself, a bridge connecting us without the need for conversation. Around us, the night began to weave its tapestry. The cicadas hidden in the shadows began their evening symphony, their song rising and falling with a rhythm that was both ancient and timeless. The gentle rustle of leaves added a hushed harmony, a soft backdrop to the night's melody. And then there was the scent of late-blooming jasmine, sweet and intoxicating, wrapping around us like a cherished memory from summers long past. It was a scent that carried with it the essence of nostalgia, a reminder of moments that were both fleeting and eternal. Evelyn, always contemplative, took a sip from her glass, her gaze fixed on the unruly garden before us. I followed her gaze, taking in the way the shadows played among the overgrown plants. The garden, with its wild, untamed beauty, seemed a reflection of Evelyn herself, a blend of chaos and grace, order and unpredictability. It was a garden that defied neatness, much like the complexities I sensed beneath Evelyn's composed exterior. "You know," she said, breaking the silence with a voice that was soft, almost wistful. "Most people think they know what I need. They see the surgeon, the widow, the woman who has everything neatly in place." Her eyes met mine, searching for something unspoken, something deeper. "But they never see the whole picture. Never." Her words resonated with me, striking a chord that was both personal and profound. I understood the burden of being seen only in fragments, of having others construct a narrative for you without seeking your truth. "People like stories they can understand," I replied, my voice carrying a note of empathy. "They like the neatness of it, the certainty." Evelyn smiled, but there was a hint of melancholy in her expression, a sadness that seemed to settle around her like a well-worn cloak. "Certainty is overrated," she said, more to herself than to me. "I'd rather have the unknown, the possibility of something unexpected." Her words stirred something within me, an echo of her own longing, perhaps. I'd come to this small town seeking simplicity, an escape from the tangled web of my own life. But here was Evelyn, her complexity drawing me in like a moth to a flame, challenging the very simplicity that I thought I desired. I was wary of getting burned, yet I found myself unable to pull away. "You're not at all what I expected," she said suddenly, her gaze steady and unwavering. Her words were a mirror, reflecting back at me the same sentiment I held about her. I chuckled softly, the sound mingling with the night air. "I told you I wasn't the kind of guy you thought." Evelyn's lips curved into a smile, one that reached her eyes and made them sparkle with a warmth that was both surprising and reassuring. "And I told you, you have no idea what kind I want." There was a challenge in her words, a dare that hung in the air between us like an unspoken promise. I found myself leaning forward, my elbows resting on my knees, as I regarded her with a newfound curiosity. "Then tell me," I said, my voice low and earnest. "What kind do you want?" She studied me for a long moment, as if weighing the risk of an honest answer. Her fingers traced the rim of her glass, and I could see the tension in the way she held herself, a tightness that spoke of vulnerability and strength in equal measure. "I want someone who sees me," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not just the parts that are easy to understand, but all of it. The messy, the complicated, the parts I don't even know how to explain." Her confession was raw, leaving me breathless with its honesty. I had sensed the depth beneath her surface, the layers of her that were hidden from the world, but to hear her articulate it was something else entirely. It was like being handed a map to a territory I'd only glimpsed, one filled with both promise and peril. "I think I can do that," I replied, my words more a promise to myself than to her. I wanted to know Evelyn and all of her intricacies, to uncover the stories etched into her soul, to explore the landscape of her heart. The night deepened around us, the stars appearing one by one in the velvet sky, each one a tiny beacon of light in the darkness. They seemed to remind us of the vastness beyond our small corner of the world, yet here on this porch with Evelyn, the universe seemed to shrink to the space between us. She looked at me, her expression open and unguarded, and I knew in that moment that whatever path lay ahead, it was one we would walk together, step by hesitant step. "Jack," she said, her voice a gentle tether drawing me in. "I don't know where this leads, but—" Her words trailed off, unfinished, but I understood. There was a fragility to beginnings, a tentative hope that held the power to either bloom into something beautiful or wither before it had the chance. But there was also a strength in it, a courage in the willingness to try. I reached out, my fingers brushing hers in a touch that was both tentative and reassuring. "We'll figure it out," I said, meeting her gaze with a steadiness that belied the flutter of uncertainty in my own heart. "Together." Evelyn's smile was soft, a gentle curve that spoke of trust and possibility. The wine, the night, the quiet. It all felt like a shared secret, a pause in the chaos that was both real and imagined. As we sat there, the world beyond the garden fading into the background like an old photograph, I realized that this was enough. The not knowing, the potential for what might be. It was enough. And in that moment, with the stars as our witness, I knew we were both exactly where we were meant to be. The night wrapped around us like a protective cloak, the universe holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. It was a moment suspended in time, a beginning that whispered of endless possibilities. And as I sat there with Evelyn, I felt a peace settle over me, a quiet certainty that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. The sun was beginning its descent, casting a golden hue over Evelyn's backyard, where the unkempt garden seemed to glow with a life of its own. Each leaf and blossom caught the light in a way that made everything appear more vibrant, more alive, as if the garden itself was breathing in the last moments of daylight. I stood there, rake in hand, watching as the long shadows stretched across the lawn, the chaos of the garden juxtaposed against the order of the house. The wild tangle of flowers and vines, though unruly, held a certain charm that was unmistakably Evelyn's, a reflection of her spirit, untamed and beautiful. It was a quiet evening, the kind that made you feel like the world had paused just for a moment, allowing you a chance to breathe and exist in the stillness. The air was cool and carried the scent of earth and blooming flowers, mingling with the distant chatter of birds settling in for the night. Above, the sky was a canvas of colors, deep oranges fading into soft purples and blues, a nightly masterpiece performed by the setting sun. Evelyn sat on the porch, a glass of wine in her hand, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She often watched the sunset like this, as if searching for something in those fading colors that she couldn't find elsewhere. There was a tranquility about her, a sense of peace that seemed to radiate outward, enveloping everything in its path. Her silhouette, framed against the glowing sky, was a picture of quiet strength and resilience. I had come to appreciate these moments, the silence between us speaking more than words ever could. In our shared quiet, we found an understanding that went beyond the superficial. It was a connection that required no explanation, a bond forged in the simple act of being present for one another. As I walked toward her, the crunch of gravel underfoot seemed loud in the evening calm. Each step was deliberate, a gentle intrusion into the serenity of the moment. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine with that familiar mix of curiosity and something else, something I couldn't quite name but felt deep in my bones. Her vulnerability, hidden beneath layers of self-sufficiency and sharp edges, was a language I was still learning to understand. There was a depth to her that intrigued me, a complexity that drew me in and made me want to know more. "Another day, another sunset," I said, easing myself onto the porch steps. A respectful distance from her, but close enough to feel the warmth of her presence. The wood creaked softly beneath me, a comforting sound that spoke of years of use and countless moments like this one. "Time moves strangely here," she replied, her voice soft yet firm, carrying with it the weight of unspoken thoughts. "Sometimes it feels like everything is rushing past, and at other times, like this, it feels like everything is standing still." Her words hung in the air, resonating with a truth that was undeniable. I nodded, understanding the sentiment. The world beyond this garden felt distant, irrelevant even. Here there was only the two of us and the unspoken stories that hung between us like a delicate thread. In this space, the pressures of the outside world seemed to fade away, leaving only the essentials, a shared moment, a shared understanding. Evelyn turned slightly to face me, her expression thoughtful. Her eyes, a deep shade of green, searched mine with an intensity that was both disarming and comforting. "You know, Jack, people always assume they know what someone like me wants. They see the surgeon, the widow, but they never really see me." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unshed truths. I felt a familiar pang of empathy, knowing all too well what it was like to be defined by what others saw, rather than who you truly were. It was a struggle I knew intimately, the challenge of reconciling one's inner self with the expectations of the world. "I can relate to that," I said, my voice tinged with a quiet resolve. "People think they know me too. They see a caretaker, just a guy mowing lawns. But they don't see beyond that." There was a certain liberation in voicing these thoughts, and acknowledging the layers that lay beneath the surface. She smiled, a small, genuine smile that seemed to light up her face. The corners of her eyes crinkled, adding warmth to her features. "It's rare to find someone who understands." Silence fell between us again, but it was a comfortable silence, filled with the soft sounds of the evening, the rustle of leaves, the distant chirp of crickets. The world seemed to hold its breath, as if in reverence of the moment shared between us. I found myself watching her, the way the fading light played across her features, highlighting the lines of her face that spoke of a life lived fully, if not without pain. "Evelyn?" I began, unsure of where I was going, but feeling the need to say something more. "What do you want, really?" She took a sip of her wine, considering my question. Her gaze drifted back to the horizon, where the sun was now a mere sliver of light. "I want freedom," she said finally, her voice almost a whisper. "Freedom from expectations, from the weight of what others think I should be." Her words resonated with me, stirring something deep inside. Wasn't that what we all wanted in the end? To be free, to be seen for who we truly were without the masks we wore for the world? The idea of freedom was a seductive one, a promise of authenticity and self-discovery. "And you, Jack?" she asked, her gaze piercing, demanding honesty. "What do you want?" I hesitated, the answer not as simple as it should have been. It was a question I had often avoided, unsure of what lay beneath the surface of my own desires. "I want to find a place where I belong," I said slowly, the truth of it surprising even me. "A place where I can just be me." Evelyn nodded, her eyes softening with understanding. "Maybe we can find that together." The suggestion, though tentative, filled me with a warmth I hadn't expected. It was a fragile hope, a possibility that loomed on the horizon like the promise of dawn after a long night. The thought of finding that place, that elusive sense of belonging, was a beacon that called to me. "I'd like that," I admitted, feeling the weight of those words settle between us, solid and real. It was a shared hope, a shared dream, and in that moment it felt attainable. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving a trail of pink and purple in its wake. As darkness began to creep in, Evelyn stood, offering me her hand. I took it, the touch of her skin against mine a gentle reminder of the connection we were forging, moment by moment, word by word. Her hand was warm and steady, a lifeline in the gathering night. We lingered there on the porch, our hands still joined, watching as the first stars appeared in the night sky. The world felt vast and infinite, yet held within the confines of the small space we had carved out for ourselves. It was a paradox, the enormity of the universe juxtaposed with the intimacy of our shared moment. Eventually she released my hand, a small sigh escaping her lips. "It's getting late," she said, her voice laced with the reluctance to end the moment. "Yeah," I agreed, standing up and brushing off my jeans. I should get going. The reality of the outside world beckoned, a reminder that time, despite its strange dance, continued to march forward. But neither of us moved, as if reluctant to break the spell of the evening. There was a comfort in our shared silence, an understanding that didn't need to be voiced. The bond we had forged, though still new and fragile, was something we both cherished. Finally, Evelyn gave me a small nod, her eyes lingering on mine. "Thank you, Jack, for being here." I smiled, a genuine smile that felt like a promise. "Any time, Evelyn. Any time." With that, I turned and made my way down the porch steps, the gravel crunching beneath my boots as I walked toward the gate. Behind me, I heard the soft click of the door, a gentle reminder that the world outside was still waiting. Yet the thought of returning to this place, to this person, filled me with an unexpected sense of anticipation. As I reached the gate, I paused, looking back at the house, the garden, and the woman who had unexpectedly come to mean so much. There was a sense of something unfinished, a story just beginning to unfold, and for the first time in a long time I felt hopeful for what might come next. It was a feeling I hadn't realized I was missing until it returned, unbidden and welcome. The night air was cool against my skin, the scent of jasmine and earth lingering as I made my way down the street. And though the path ahead was uncertain, filled with unknowns and unspoken desires, I knew I would return. For in that garden, amidst the chaos and the beauty, I had found something precious. An unexpected connection that felt like home. It was a place where time moved at its own pace, where dreams and reality intertwined, creating a space that was uniquely ours. Weeks passed in a kind of measured anticipation, each visit to Evelyn's house a step deeper into an uncharted territory. The garden, with its wildness, became the backdrop to our unfolding story, a living metaphor for the complexity of what lay between us. It was a place where we could let our guards down, where words and silences held equal weight, and where the boundaries of our tentative connection were gently tested. On a particularly cool evening, as autumn began its slow descent upon the town, I found myself once again in Evelyn's backyard. The air had a crispness to it, a whisper of the changing season, and the garden was ablaze with the colors of fall, deep reds, bright oranges, and the last stubborn greens clinging to life. I was raking leaves, their dry rustle a comforting sound beneath the dimming sky, when Evelyn appeared at the door. She stood there for a moment, watching me with an expression I had come to recognize, a mix of curiosity and reflection, as if she was constantly re-evaluating the world and her place within it. "Jack!" she called softly, her voice carrying over the cool evening air. "Would you like to come in for a cup of coffee?" It was a simple invitation, yet it carried the weight of something more profound. I nodded, setting the rake aside and making my way toward her. Her presence was a beacon, a steady light guiding me through the complexities of my own emotions. Inside, the warmth of the house enveloped me, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the faint scent of the fire crackling in the hearth. Evelyn handed me a mug, our fingers brushing briefly, a touch that felt as familiar as it was new. We settled into the living room, the fire casting a soft glow that danced across the walls. The room, much like the rest of her home, was a blend of order and elegance, yet with touches of chaos that spoke of a life lived fully, if not always neatly. Evelyn sat across from me, her eyes reflecting the firelight, and for a moment we simply sat in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. There was something comforting about the quiet, the way it allowed space for reflection and understanding. "I've been thinking," Evelyn said suddenly, her voice breaking the stillness, "about what you said, about finding a place where you belong." Her words hung in the air, and I felt a familiar flutter of vulnerability at the thought of what might come next. "And?" I prompted, my voice steady despite the uncertainty coursing through me. She took a breath, her gaze steady and sincere. I think we've found it, haven't we? In this, whatever this is." There was a fragility to her words, a tentative hope that mirrored my own. I nodded slowly, feeling the truth of her statement settle around us like a warm blanket. "I think so," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. The fire crackled softly, its warmth a gentle reminder of the moment we were sharing. There was a sense of peace in the room, a quiet acknowledgement of the journey we had embarked upon together. It was a journey without a map, guided only by the unspoken understanding that had grown between us. Evelyn leaned back, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I'm glad," she said simply, her eyes meeting mine with a clarity that spoke of acceptance and promise. We didn't need to define what we had found, to label it with the constraints of expectation or convention. It was enough to know that in each other we had discovered a place of belonging, a sanctuary amidst the chaos of life. It was a realization that brought with it a profound sense of relief and anticipation. As the evening wore on, we talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing easily in the comfort of shared companionship. Our words wove a tapestry of laughter, introspection, and quiet moments that needed no embellishment. When the time came to leave, I stood at the door, the world outside a reminder of the life that continued beyond these walls, but there was no longer a sense of urgency, only the quiet certainty that I would return. Evelyn walked me to the door, her presence a comforting constant. As I stepped outside, the cool night air wrapped around me, a gentle reminder of the world beyond this newfound sanctuary. "Jack," she called softly, her voice carrying a note of tenderness that warmed me from the inside out. I turned, meeting her gaze, and in that moment I saw the depth of what we had built, a connection that defied easy explanation, yet felt as real as the ground beneath my feet. "Thank you," she said, her words simple yet profound. I nodded, understanding the depth behind them. "No, thank you," I replied, knowing that this was only the beginning of something unexpected and beautiful. As I walked away, the night sky stretched endlessly above me, a canvas of stars that whispered of dreams and possibilities. And though the future remained uncertain, I held on to the hope that in Evelyn I had found not just a place, but a person who saw me, understood me, and was willing to walk the path ahead, together. In the quiet of the night, as the world settled into slumber, I felt a peace that had been absent for too long. It was a peace born of understanding, of finding kindred spirit in the unlikeliest of places. And as I looked back at the house, the light from the window a beacon in the darkness, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it side by side, with courage, hope, and the quiet certainty of newfound belonging.